Yes. Dream come true.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so we are at Cosmic Comics
We
for
are still
Batman
at
Day.
Cosmic Comics, yes, and it is
And-
still currently Batman Day, although by the time this video airs, it won't be.
It'll be Batman Day next year.
At the rate we take to edit stuff. But yes, we are still here, and we thought this would be the prime opportune moment to announce the winner to our Stan Lee Minico competition that we ran quite recently, actually, on our podcast. I'm just trying to get this in shot. At
Yeah, we can
various
also
angles.
insert some
Dude, GoPro right here.
pretty footage.
We forgot about our GoPro, for God's sakes. That is what kind of a day it's been, folks. We forgot about the little GoPro cam. So yeah, we ran this competition on our social media platforms where our fans, our viewers, had to comment on the posts linked to the Stan Lee Minico competition.
And like and subscribe to
Correct,
Cosmic
yeah.
Comics, and we had a whole list of
as well as our pages, etc., etc. And I must say, I was quite surprised by the amount of response that we got for our first competition. It was also interesting that the posts seemed to spread quite far.
yeah.
We had a lot more people subscribing to our channels, joining, liking, etc. But not all of them entered the competition, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, also I did find that also, but I mean, hopefully this is one of many that are to come, and hopefully
Yeah.
we'll refine the process, guys. I mean,
Sure.
we're just so grateful that Cosmic Comics were willing to sponsor this to us.
Yep.
And that's also why, I mean, like you said, I think it's relevant that we handed out, or announced the winner at least, here at Cosmic Comics.
Definitely.
I know it's
Before-
Stan Lee, and he
Yes.
has nothing to do with Batman Day, but it is Minico and Iron Studios, and
Yeah, man, and in the home of our comics anyway, here at
Yeah.
Cosmic. So, going back to what you said, they were the kind enough to be our sponsors, benefactors for this. So, it just seems apt to do it here. Before we do announce the ultimate winner, though, I do want to make a few special or honorable mentions. I think first shout out has to go out to a good friend of us from the community. I think he was the first person to comment and start liking and sharing and everything. That was Gavin Townsend.
oh yeah,
So big shout out to Captain Rogers from your friends here in the asylum. Yeah, man, biggest Captain America fan I know, and he was all in to try and get the Stanley. So thank you for that. And I did note that he was the first. Another special mention or honorable mention, I think, has to go to Chris Greef.
yeah.
There was like one or two accounts that numerous comments, numerous feedback on the videos and everything. And I think we both think that they could have potentially both been him, unless
Yeah.
we are getting it horribly wrong here when we put all the names into the little basket to draw it out. He certainly had quite a few entries in there, and kudos to him, and thanks for the support.
And then he was right up there. He was very close. So
Yeah, especially in terms of names, amounts of times the name went into the hat. Chris, I think he was potentially, could have been our biggest entrant into the competition.
yeah.
But as Murphy's Law sometimes deals these interesting cards, it wasn't Chris, and I think it was a new follower of ours, a guy named Jeffrey.
Yeah, Jeffrey. And Jeffrey, we cannot pronounce your surname. We will give it a go, but...
I'm going for like Cattaert or something.
Or Cattaert, or... We're not
Something along
sure,
those
but
lines.
we will put up a screenshot, and we will
Yes.
find a way to contact you.
We'll reach out to you. We'll comment on the posts that he did or something. We're gonna need your details where we can send this little mini code to, and I hope it's going to a good home, and I hope Jeffrey enjoys having Stan.
And, I hope it's a start to a long line of Iron Studio figures.
Or just figures in general, man. Decorative things. I hope it just helps reflect the love for the industry.
Yeah, congrats, dude.
So well done.
Wrong thing.
We have to label those at some point.
Yeah, we totally do. My bad.
We'll get there. But yeah, So thanks for that, Jeffrey. Thanks to everyone
For
who-
entering,
yeah,
sharing.
sharing the love, and
Love.
please just don't stop. Keep sharing, keep liking, keep spreading the word about our little podcast if you're enjoying the content.
Yeah, and I just want to say one last thing, like, especially, I think it's actually Jeffrey. He asked like our opinions on one or two things, and there has been a few other comments. So we are busy in the process of collecting that and seeing how we can turn it into a video and talk about like our opinion. I know he also mentioned that he's going to get, I think the Three Jokers that's just come out, which
Okay.
I've got. It's one of my finds. We'll talk about it. So I mean, I think we'll definitely give it a read. You'll probably wait for the TP. I'm not sure.
That's my general sort of flow.
But yeah, so I'll try to get through the first issue, and we can maybe even start talking about that and amongst other things.
Yes, and I think on that note, guys, thanks. Keep commenting, keep posting. I know we are not the greatest at responding all the time, but definitely we are in the process of looking through all the commentary, all the things that you guys have said or asked, and yeah, we'll probably do an episode just addressing those, giving
Yeah.
thoughts, giving comments.
Yeah, and one last shout out that I want to give. It's a bit random, but in our comments I found a gentleman that's called Perfect Edition Comics.
Oh,
And he commented on our stuff, and he actually asked, funny enough, that one episode that we did, he said, what's your ratio of overbuying to reading? And, I like the comment, but I'm still yet to respond. But I just wanted to say, if you guys can go search him, and he's another local guy, and we want to support all local comic book related YouTube channels and things. So go give him, he does like sort of books open and pages through and walkthroughs of the stuff
Okay.
that he's read and stuff, and comparisons to different versions of it and stuff. So yeah, give him a watch and a
Yeah,
like.
100%.
Spread the love.
Definitely, man, definitely. And I think if I had to answer his question, it's a horrible ratio in life on my side there, man. Definitely it's perversely skewed on the buy side for now, with not enough reading happening of late. But I guess that's life. Life sometimes happens, and both Mark and I are committed to picking up and getting back to the reading, especially of some of these new finds. And yeah, we'll feedback on them as we get through them.
Yeah. And again, congrats, Jeff.
Yeah.
And we'll get hold of you and look out for the next competition.
Yeah, because there will be more, guaranteed.
Hello.
Hey. Well, that was cool, actually, getting to chat to some in-store goers. And
Definitely.
get, I suppose you could say the man or woman on the streets.
What's interesting, dude, is like when we started this, like we had talked behind the scenes of how nervous we were and how we sound on mic and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how, like, you don't think about how long how far we've come, because you see how nervous everyone else is, and we like, what's the deal? It's just
100%.
talking on a mic, and we're so
Yes.
used to talking to one another.
This is true.
But yeah, so I mean, I think it's relevant, man. It is Batman Day / Batman Weekend / Batman. So maybe we should talk about, how Batman affected us and how we were introduced and all of that. I don't know,
I like that. That's a nice idea, because we're both fans of the character. I don't think we're hardcore extreme, but we certainly do like the character.
Yeah.
The character has some things that do resonate with us. In fact, for me especially, I'm sure it'll be the same for you. The whole Bat family, I guess, with like some of the Robins, one or two of the Batgirls also kind of resonate with me. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. I think it's a great one for our fans out there.
Yeah, so I might have mentioned this, people might have missed the podcast, so it's okay. I don't mind talking about it again. But I was very fortunate, man. When I grew up, like I've mentioned to you, I didn't get exposed to comics immediately, but it was, the arcade games and stuff like that. But
Well, that's what happens when you live in like one-horse towns.
yeah,
man.
exactly. But what was really cool is long story short, I have family and aunt that moved around a lot because her husband had, this work position that demanded it. Anyway, they lived in Hong Kong, out of all places.
Okay.
And my gran frequently went and visited them, and she flew overseas when she could, and she would always bring back Batman figurines. And I can't tell you why or how or who, it just came to me. So like I was spoiled, and I got all these cool Batman figures, and like I had like every little you know, they were like sort of the shape like the animation series, and but they were like figures. Their arms could move and stuff. They were toys.
Yeah.
And man, it was just like this treat. Every time she got back, I'd get one, and he'd have a different version of a suit, and everything from like these, like there's one where you clip something on his back, and he had like a foofy slide that you could, and he had one where it was an actual plastic cape that like covered him like a shield.
Nice.
Dude, it was like all these, and I had white suits, like yellow suits, like, and I don't know if they were the real thing or if they were like Hong Kong fakes or.
No, what you're describing to me, there was a definite era where, and DC didn't only do it themselves. Marvel had some of that too, where it was like, I can remember a Marvel set where they had each one of the characters. I've still got the one Wolverine. He looks almost like a demonified dragon-like Wolverine. His claws are accentuated. This mask that he's got on has like these hectic fangs and everything, and he had this like wings and stuff that would clip onto him so that you could glide him through the air. And all the characters in that set had the same thing. There was a water-fired thing, Spider-Man, X-Men, where they came with giant like water pistol cannons that you could fill up and then squirt the other ones to knock the characters down.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that.
And those Batmans that you're describing, it was each wave had a different, I don't know, maybe the word gimmick is wrong, but the reason why there was different colored suits and different things was, it's to kind of mimic the different functions that his belt, utility belt and all that has, but also fit for purpose suits, some with gliding ability, some with, like you say, capes that could shield, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, and I'll never forget, dude, because then I started getting into it, and like, you know, as a kid, then everything became Batman for me.
Yeah.
And all I wanted was the Batmobile. Like, that's all I ever wanted. And I could keep telling them, like a total brat. I'll be like, I want the Batmobile. So my grandma would go and she would try as a like a, you know, slightly older lady. And the one day, like they were sorted, and I was like, rip open this present, and it's like, and it was the Freeze Mobile. So this white, like it shaped like a Batmobile, but it was this, and when the wheels turned, it had almost this ice driller in the front that would turn with it, and you could open it, and one of those figures could slide in. And I was like, I don't want the Freezer, I want the Batmobile. And now I look at myself, I'm like, I should have given myself a freaking slap over the head because I got all these cool toys, you know.
Yeah, it's
and
amazing. When you're a kid, you see things different. You know?
And I even had like a Dr. Freeze from, you know, I think it was a different era of figures. And like, I'll remember as a kid, they were toys, and I broke over like his
dome.
Yeah, his dome. So it's like, it's all so funny to think about now. And that was like my first introduction, dude. And then it became, you know, the Tim Burton movies and all that like followed.
Okay.
Very shortly afterwards.
And when you had the toys, did you know it was Batman that you had?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like, to you, he was just this pretty cool looking.
It started like that, but then I obviously learned and figured out who Batman was and stuff over time. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But that was my first introduction of the toys, dude. And I can't remember further back than that. So.
I think, as far back as I can remember, it was one of two. It was either the animated series or it was the movie. And I dare say it was probably the Michael Keaton movie, because I think that was still in the 80s / maybe 1990, around there. And if memory serves, and I think I've got my timeline right, I think Batman the animated series came out post Keaton movie.
Yeah.
So I think for me it was definitely the Keaton movie, and it's like so funny, dude. Kind of like it's a bit of a side note, but it'll make sense to you. I was also obsessed with the soundtrack. Like I had Batman caps, Batman T-shirts with that logo from the Burton movie. Had a couple action figures based on that, and then I was so obsessed that I even got the soundtrack back on cassette tape still, before CDs even, dude. Cassette tape. I was so obsessed with it, and at the time, I just loved the music there, but I didn't know it was Prince. Prince did the entire album, and as in my teens in high school, and as I got into Prince as an artist, and I realized, oh shit, Prince actually did that album, I had like a whole new, almost like resurgent and a love for that album, because I got it, I listened to it again, and I had flashbacks to when I was a kid, listening to that on a boombox, playing the certain things and fast forwarding to the songs that I liked over the others and all of that kind of stuff.
Which film was Seal, dude? Kissed by the Rose.
Kissed by the Rose was the third one. That was with Val Kilmer.
Yeah, it was too.
And Nicole Kidman was
Poison Ivy, wasn't she?
No, she was. some therapist, and I forget her name now. Poison Ivy was Uma Thurman.
Yes, that's yes.
And I don't think that was Freeze. I don't think that was Mr. Freeze. That was, and
Well, Schwarzenegger was
correct.
Freeze.
Schwarzenegger was Freeze, and I think Uma Thurman was in the Schwarzenegger one. That was by, I can't even remember who the director was. Joel Schumacher. The third one was Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and Two-Face was
Tommy Lee Jones.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was the third film. Kiss from a Rose and all of that kind of jazz happening there. But definitely that Burton one, Michael Keaton Batman, it proper imprinted on me, and we often have this discussion, and because of that, I think that's why it's my Batman.
Yeah.
That Batmobile still for me. I mean, I like the Tumbler. Tumbler was pretty sick, but that Batmobile just. But the lines, the blackness of it spoke to me.
Yeah, you know what? When I first saw the Nolan movies and they came out with the Tumbler, like, my first instinct of first 10 seconds, I was like, that's not the Batmobile. What the fuck are they doing? And then I was kind of like, yeah, but it's cool.
Yeah.
And they're not calling it the Batmobile. So I'm like, okay, fair enough.
True.
So I kind of, it grew on me.
Yeah.
So
and look, for the movie, the type of because the Tim Burton ones had a sense of realism, but more comic side to it, where the Nolan ones were more heavily grounded in realism. So the Tumbler worked for this urban combat type of vehicle. It's
that was developed by Bruce Wayne's company.
100%.
Sorry, Wayne Enterprise.
Yeah, way more plausible, so to speak. So I dug that. And then following on from that, it was definitely the animated series. That's where I proper fell in love with Batman as a character.
Okay.
And just the way they did that show, some of the characters that came through there, and I've watched it recently again. I downloaded all of it because they'd remastered it and all that stuff. And
okay, cool.
There are still some episodes that are out of this world, man.
Nice.
Proper hit you in the feels
I must
kind of
do
thing.
that sometime.
You won't be disappointed. You really won't. Because although it was a kids show, there was a lot of adult-orientated themes and content and stuff. So kids would appreciate it. And I think as a kid, there was probably some of those episodes that I didn't like because they were too deep for me, and there was not enough Batman kicking and punching and and now watching them as an adult, I mean, some of those episodes, I don't think a single punch is thrown, but what happens in those episodes, you're just like, wow, sure, okay. Yeesh. That, and then there's one or two from the Justice League animated that stand out for me too. One in particular with Batman, where he goes to this house that's supposedly haunted by the spirit, and it kind of is this little girl, and the whole basic thing is she's just scared to pass into the next thing. And then and she's this little child stuck there, so she's causing havoc as kids would. And there's a scene where Batman sits with her. She's on the swing, and he sits next to her, and he just comforts her, and she basically says, "Will you hold me as I go?" And he does.
Sure.
In the feels, man. It's one of the most emotional. And this is a kids' cartoon where these things were coming from. The Mr. Freeze episode in Batman the Animated Series, where that's where they really gave him depth as a villain, where it's all about his wife that he's trying to save. Yeah, in the feels kind of stuff. So, that was my Batman. And obviously, as things have gone on, the movies have helped. The Nolan ones, the Snyder ones. I think I still do have a special place for some of the DC animated films.
Yeah.
Especially the ones pre-Johns and Johns. They definitely set that sort of tone that he is the smartest guy in the room. And, he's got plans and counter plans and all of that stuff. And then in the animated, when they would retell some of those classic stories, like, Tower of Babel, and the Morrison one with the JLA when the Martians come and all of that, and it's Batman who has these plans to unravel everything. And then there's the second one that was with the Earth 2 guys, where Batman goes up against Owlman, and it's just those ones really stick out for me as amazing animated movies. Very, very cool. Even the Batman Beyond animated movie,
I actually still haven't seen that.
The Return of the Joker, dark as Bah. And the twist was, I honestly think that it's one of the best twists I've ever seen. Do yourself a favor and watch it.
Yeah, no. Well,
If your jaw isn't like "Grr" at the end of that, it caught me by surprise, and it's a brilliant twist. So clever.
okay, awesome. Yeah, man. I pretty much agree with you on all the fronts. So, but
Okay.
I think what the difference between, and I know this might seem obvious, but I think what appealed to me is Batman is almost this, like, he's a vigilante. He doesn't have superpowers.
Look, I'm sanitizing. On camera sanitization. Yeah, doesn't have any superpowers.
But he's still with his mind and his tech. I've often had like non-comic people be like, what do they say? Like, basically, Batman's nothing without his money, because of that Justice League joke where he's like, "What's
I'm
your
rich."
superpowers?" "I'm rich." And I think that's awesome. It worked, but like,
Yeah.
it's like, no, Batman is so much more than that. You just,
And I don't think that comes across. Burton was trying to do it in his movie, to try and convey, and it came across in Burton's movie more as obsession, obsessed with his parents' death. And not many people are able to convey the determination and the drive that he's got.
Yeah.
That doesn't always come out there. I mean, what I liked about the first Nolan movie is he's trying to convey that this guy's a lost soul, but he's a driven lost soul, and he tours the world trying to find people to train him to fight, like defend himself, fight, take out.
Yeah, find answers in his own way. Yeah.
Again, I don't think it came across 100%, but for those that know the character, get what he was definitely trying to do there. And that's the thing for me. He's this highly intelligent master strategist, but driven to a level that most people aren't. I mean, when I think of that kind of drive, it's the likes of like the Michael Jordans, the Cristiano Ronaldos, these elite sports, Schumacher, guys that get to the pinnacle of multiple world champions in their field, heralded as like, you often hear people say, geez, it'll be a while before we see this person coming through.
Yeah.
And it's that level of drive and determination. You often hear those stories where everyone's left the practice and gone home, and that person is still there practicing shooting, free throws, whatever the case is. They're often the guy who's earliest to the practice too, like get there before everyone else and do some things to get themselves warmed up or whatever it is. And it's a whole other level of
What I'm
drive.
interested is, maybe you'll know this, but like, has any of the comics like tackled what Bruce Wayne's IQ is?
Not directly.
That's an interesting concept, because I mean, as you were saying that about sports, I thought about people's minds. They say Steve Jobs had sort of the estimated IQ of 160. Elon Musk is apparently the 155 range. And just for, if anyone doesn't know, I'm speaking off the top of my head now, I think the average person's about 100.
Around there.
Yeah, so like, I mean, so that's a big deal, and those are rare minds. So I mean, you're taking Batman, it's determination, and possibly maybe he was just a smart kid, from the start.
Yeah, true.
So, and I think that's completely plausible. Like you said, you get these individuals, and that's just what he chose to do.
Correct. And in the comics, they often, and it's more in I've seen it referenced in the more Justice League type comics, where they'll often refer to guys like Lex, Mr. Terrific, and that as like, I think they call them 12th or nth level intellect people who are like 50,000, like that's why Lex can create half the things he creates and invent these things, and often many steps ahead of everyone else. Batman isn't on the same level of intellect or intelligence, but he is intelligent, he's genius plus level, but it's more the strategist side to it. So everything that's happened to him, and it's part strategy, it's also part paranoia. All of that culminates in this guy who just doesn't take anything at face value ever. And that also fuels the detective side of him. So he's a damaged individual, but he's honed it, he's refined it, and he's channeled it to the pinnacle of what a possible human being could in that.
And then even more so, I mean, then they add even more layers to that, where you have someone like Alfred, who levels him out when he needs it.
Yeah, grounds
every
him in
time.
that,
Yeah, grounds him. That's the word I was looking for. So
100%, yeah. And Morrison took it to another level as well because there'd always been that sort of relationship with the Robin character coming in, be it Dick or Tim Drake or any of those ones. And I think Morrison took it to a whole other level when he introduced Damien. Because here was this kid who was raised by the League of Assassins, underage, and just a borderline psychopathic killer. And giving that sort of a kid to someone who arguably is a psychopath in his own right, or at least a sociopath, and now having to get him to pull the kid from the dark to the light, and that completely defined the relationship too. And Morrison was very smart in saying that the only way that he could do that was by making it his actual biological son. You don't have that level of investment.
Yeah, it's unconditional love. All love is conditional. Even if you have a wife or a husband, it's conditional. You can break those, but if it's a child, your love is unconditional.
100%. And Morrison used that very, very well to do that sort of story, which again shows you a whole other dimension to the Batman character too, which fantastic.
That's another thing. I know I'm going back to Alfred, but it's one of the few things that I liked about the Gotham series, about how they had
TV series, sorry.
Yeah, the TV series, how they had sort of their own twist on Alfred, and Alfred having training Bruce because his parents weren't around. I thought that was quite smart, being like this mentor.
Special
to me
Forces, he was in the British Special Forces,
and
I remember.
That's completely plausible because, Batman has learned, like, from the League of Assassins, but, like, so many other disciplines. He knows, like, everything, so...
Totally, yeah. No, he's just... do not F with kind of character there. in most terms, But, you stick him up against, like, a Mongol or someone like that. He can't rely on all of that training. It's a whole other game that he has to play. Outmaneuver, out-strategize, outthink a Mongol type of person. And I like that diversity to the character.
Yeah.
I think gives it the longevity. On the other side, the true mark for me of the Batman is the Rogues Gallery, because often people throw that adage out, the hero is only as good as the villain he's going up against.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Batman, I dare say it's probably a neck and neck between him and Spider-Man, who has the most creative, elaborate, diverse Rogues Gallery of villains. I mean, Flash, notable mention, sure, but nowhere near on the level as Batman and or Spider-Man.
Yeah, and like you said, it's because I think they've worked so much on developing those characters and giving them plausible, like you just mentioned, Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Like there's so many, dude. We could talk all day, but I mean, like Poison Ivy, like, like I don't even... Two-Face is like... And if you talk about it on the surface, it sounds so cliche, but like when you see it, you're like, no, damn, that's cool.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, credit to the character too. Some of the modern ones that they've brought out. I mean...
The Joker, we haven't even mentioned. What the hell?
He's probably the ultimate villain of all time. For me, it's a toss-up between him and maybe Doom or Magneto in terms of complexity and just great characters. But I look at what Snyder's brought to the fore with Batman Who Laughs and all of those dark multiverse type versions. I mean, those are great villains in and of themselves too.
Yeah.
So he just... something about that character, he attracts just not only good stories, good writers and everything, but just the villains that they come up for him are just amazing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you liked what Mark and I were talking about here, or just like our content in general,
please like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more videos.
And do us a favor and find us on the social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram.
See you in the next video.